Take care of those drones!
What's up guys, Crave here, and there's been a lot of good games in the last 2 months that it's been pretty crazy trying to figure out which games I should play on my free time. There is this odd one though that was released on the 10th of this month, and that's Terminator Resistance. Now, this game might have been ignored by many people, as it often happens with non-AAA releases and titles, and the developer might have been given they might have a bad reputation from a previous game that they released. But this game has its charm and reasons to play through. Here's my quick take on this sub-price game. Let's go over the story, graphics, and gameplay. The Terminator movie franchise is pretty much, dead in the water if Dark Fate's box office is anything to go by. What I really wanted was a continuation of Judgment Day and to see what the world would have looked like after it. Thankfully, this game gives us that in a very simple way. You start the story as a member of the Resistance fighting the machines, and you're trying your best to survive. You come from one of the Resistance fighters' branches, and as it turns out, your division was wiped out and you were the only survivor. Your job is to make it to Central Command in order to make sense of things. As you do this, you meet a lot of normal people along the way who don't really fight, and you also get incorporated into a different division of the Resistance. This leads you to activities that would stop the machines from taking over completely. As with most games, you also do these side quests for some people along the way, and all these story elements and interactions with NPCs will remind you of games like Fallout 3, where things are done in first person. Even the romance options in the game are also done in first person. Like I said, the story is simple. Even more so are how the plot elements evolve and background stories of the NPCs you meet along the way develop. The main story simplicity, however, is, I think, the main thing that got me going. I see the world after Judgment Day, and I participate in the missions to basically stop Skynet and the machines. And as you progress the story, you even get to work with a very, very important character in the Terminator lore. The ending also ties into the events of the first two films. So really, this game should have the interest of those who like to game or play games and who love the first two films. Well, that is, if they can ignore some of the game's faults. There's really no point dragging it out, but the graphics of this game are mediocre to just okay at best when you consider today's standards or technology. The textures in the game world could use a lot of work, and the animations appear a bit awkward at times. Now, if you also choose to get into the romance options or the romance scenes, your partner's expressions look really weird. However, I would like to say that they did put a good amount of effort in the Terminators or the T-800s that you have to handle in the game. From the first moment that you get grabbed by a T-800, it really reminds you of the old Terminator movies. While the graphics department wasn't too good, the audio was a step up in comparison. The shots from your plasma weapons and the background music really puts you into the mood. This very much helps in the story elements I mentioned earlier. The story shows you what post-Judgment Day would have been like, and it's coupled with the proper music and sound effects. It will really just remind you of the old movies and the sound effects you used to hear back then. So basically, the auditory experience helps in keeping your interest in this game. Just like the graphics, the gameplay in Terminator Resistance is, average. It's not this year's Modern Warfare in terms of gunplay. There isn't much recoil in your shots, and you don't feel the oomph when you're firing. Taking down the machines, though, is a bit fun. The T-800s are not easy at the start, but once you get your plasma weapons and start upgrading them, they become easier to take down. But in terms of the other things you do, there's nothing new to see here. The concepts are easy to absorb. You gain levels as you kill enemies and progress the story. You also gather experience when you craft things like ammunition or your bombs, when you hack terminals or these turrets, and when you lockpick doors and do all these little things that add variety to the gameplay. Hacking mechanics are very simplified, but really fun when you can turn turrets against Terminators and other machines. Gaining levels then allows you to allocate skill points, which channels into different upgrades or passives. The skill tree is also very simplified in that, like most RPGs, the skill that boosts your experience gains might be something worth your time. And in this game, just like any other RPG I would hold off on skill point upgrades until I eventually encounter a situation that might need the upgraded skill. So, typical. And one last thing I want to mention about gameplay is in terms of moving around the game world, and it's also like the other parts of this game, it's also very simplified. There aren't many areas that you can explore as each level is its own instance or its own section. You have markers on your map that tell you where to go and where, at least it's not even the general direction, it just tells you where you can, complete your quest. You can't really get lost as the level design sort of holds your hand as you traverse the wasteland. I think you pretty much get a sense of what this game is like. If you skipped it on release day, it's understandable, but there is some charm, especially if you like the first two Terminator films. It allows you, again as I mentioned, to join in the resistance and see what the world as it would have been like after Judgment Day. I would recommend this game provided you can keep your expectations in check. Anyway, thanks for checking this out, and I'll talk to you soon.